Start. Hello, and welcome to the Geeks Assembled podcast. What we are doing now through Zoom and a little special effects on my square corner here, we're going to talk about, if you haven't noticed the people in the background, is the play and book turned into a movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I believe came out in 75. I don't know. Did it come out in England in 74 or 76? In England?
75.
75. And of course, we have our other willing participants here, Susan, Lee, Ethan, and Stephen. And of course, again, this was based on a book that was based also on a play, and they're still doing the play in some circles. And then this was converted into a movie. It's a very famous movie and has many famous character actors and many famous lines and quotes. So, very quickly, we'll go over, and I'll comment finally last as to what everybody's first initial impressions, and when they finish watching the movie, what they thought, and try to keep it under 3 minutes, and I have to remember that too.
All right. Well, I guess the microphone's here. So I first read the book in high school. It was intense. It was really crazy. The movie came out then. The movie was out in 75, but I didn't actually watch it until about 86 or something like that. But I had to read it in 9th grade, so that was in 84, and apparently won an Academy Award for Best Picture in 75, and it was a good movie, and it was a great book. And I became a really big fan of the author. In fact, so much I was like, I went to try to meet up with him in Oregon in 1987. I was pretty caught up. I read everything that he wrote up until that point. Right after this, and then I went to Oregon and actually called him in 92, and it was scary. The bits where McMurtry was getting electroconvulsive therapy or electroshock therapy scared the crap out of me. Oh my gosh. And then there was the scene. I'll say my favorite scenes for after, and back to you, Alex.
Okay. Who wants to speak next? Ethan.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't read the book until after watching the movie many years later, but years and years ago, the first time I watched this was with my mum, and this is literally one of my favorite movies of all time, and to me, one of the greatest movies we've ever got. You've got it. You've got great humor. All the comedy in it is brilliant. You've got all the drama. You've got all the intensity, and just how scary life was being in a mental hospital of the 70s. Even though the book's set in the 60s, this is in the 70s. But all the actors, you've got some of the greatest actors ever in this. Jack Nicholson, Christopher Lloyd, Danny DeVito, all of them young. And Michael Berryman, who's the villain from Hills Have Eyes, Scatman Crothers, Louise Fletcher, and trying to think, just all of them play the parts perfectly. And you've got that many iconic moments in it. And you just care for the characters. I remember watching this. I still cry at the movie at the end, what happens at the end. But it's just such a fantastic movie, and it ends on a great happy note. And the Chief himself's he's just so iconic, the Chief. He's brilliant. I love him. I absolutely adore him. And Jack Nicholson plays the part of McMurphy perfectly. He is McMurphy. And I always wonder if they must have looked at him and thought he'll play the Joker many years later because of him with the cards and all that in the night house and stuff. But yeah, it's just such a fantastic story. And I could watch it again and again and again and still have the same emotions I had as a kid when I first watched this. So nothing bad about this movie, I think. It's just a emotional, intense film, but with great comedy as well.
Well, they also had, just as a side note, they also had Christopher Lloyd, and they had also a couple of people that were on Barney Miller, pretty much playing the same type, this very nervous, very screamy type of character, the gentleman who wanted his cigarettes back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
And he's
I was trying to
always
remember his
played,
name.
he's always played a neurotic, kind of yelly, kind of upset character, and he's been in over 100 things, and so I guess he didn't mind getting typecast because he does it so well, and it's his job. So the guy with the glasses that was a little more than a little bit overweight, I can't remember his name now, but yeah, a lot of them ended up playing except for Christopher Lloyd and a very young Danny DeVito as well, which is ironic because you
I
get,
forgot how young he
yeah,
is in that
right,
movie.
you get,
So young.
right. And as I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, you get used to people sort of being typecast. And Jack Nicholson was sort of typecast too. He's always played very wild, very, offbeat characters, and he's never changed his voice at all. He's always done that. I mean, I
Yeah.
even saw other movies in the 60s. I think one was called The Trip, and another where he's always played the similar character. Okay, Stephen or Lee, which one next?
I'll go. I put a friend of mine was saying about this movie, how great it was, and I thought it's a bit upsetting because it's about the asylum and all that. I thought it'd be an upsetting movie, but I was just blown away with it. It's just fantastic. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. The performance of Jack Nicholson, the actress who plays the nurse, are just outstanding. I laughed, I cried at the end. What happens to Jack Nicholson? It's just an amazing movie, and I've watched it. I've lost count how many times I've watched it. It still makes me laugh and upset at the end. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Lee?
Thanks for that. Yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm one of these people. I have never read the book. I've got something that I've never read the book. Winner of 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of 1975, Best Actor, Best Actress, and you can see why. It's an emotional roller coaster, this movie. And who would have thought, a movie, a story about people in a mental asylum would win these awards? But if you choose the right actors, you get gold, and this is gold. You can't fault. I mean, Jack Nicholson, yeah, he was made to play this part, and I agree with Ethan. Yeah, you can see why he got the role of the Joker. He was born for that part as well. Yeah, the Chief is iconic. Everybody knows that. If nobody, anybody who's seen the movie or anybody's heard of the movie, they know the role of the Chief. and also, all the supporting actors, as everybody says, Christopher Lloyd, Danny DeVito, Brad Dourif, who celebrated his birthday during the week. He's been in many, 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 many movies. Even if you don't see his face these days, you can hear his voice, Mr. Chucky, of course. But yeah, it's an awesome, awesome movie, and I agree. It's an eye opener. I don't know. Yeah, but for me, it's the characterization of everybody. They've just got everything right down. They've got it to the T. They've really they've nailed this. Even Nurse Ratched. Wow. What an evil. Well, no, not evil. She was doing her job. She believed in what she was doing was right. But to all to the others, she was the evil. You can either take that side or you can take that side. There's two sides to this story, and it's by the end of it, you are an emotional wreck. But all the way through it, it's so enjoyable, and it doesn't drag. Because you always think, oh, movies like this, it's going to drag, it's going to be boring, these plays, but it's not. It's because of the writing, the script, the actors make you want to watch and keep attention to the screen, and they do that. I can't fault this movie, and also as well, it was in the credits as well. This was the first movie Michael Douglas produced as well. Michael Douglas. So, this was early in his career as well, Michael Douglas. So, look at him now, eh? But yeah, I enjoy this movie. I haven't seen it for quite a few years, so I dusted the DVD down. You can see how old it is. It's the cardboard one. But yeah, it's an amazing movie. 1975. It deserved all the praise it got. It's thinking of it now. Have we had a movie since then? What's been?
Yes.
You're going to say something now, aren't you? Go on.
Yes, we have. I think you might have heard of the movie. It was called Girl, Interrupted. And there was a couple of other ones. What I was going to mention, Lee, not to interrupt you, but as well, Louise Fletcher does not like that role anymore. She thought she was too mean in it. There's a lot of legends around that movie in terms of the director who was not very talking to a lot of the actors, and I guess he did that on purpose. There may or may not have been people from an actual asylum in the movie. There may or may not have been people visiting patients that was getting the treatment, the electroshock therapy. Also, Kirk Douglas owned part of it and then gave it to his son. And of course, I haven't seen the play, so I don't know if that's totally different from the movie, if there's slight differences, and I haven't read the book. I have read similar books, like a lot of things from George Orwell and Aldous Huxley and other types of movies where they've sort of touched on it as well.
The book one's parallel to the movie. It's absolutely, pretty much the same thing.
The Indian is mostly the narrator. Is that correct?
In the book, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
and I guess in the movie too, because he's looking way out past the surroundings and out into the lake when it opens.
Sure.
Looking past the boundary. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I also haven't read the book, the actual book that this is based on, so I'm not sure how different it is from the play and the movie.
Parallel.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
It's parallel.
I heard you. Did you see the play?
No, I haven't seen the play, but I read the book in high school. It was required reading, and then I read it again when I read everything that Ken Kesey ever wrote.
Okay.
You know, he was the first Grateful Dead head.
Lee wanted to say something.
Well, I know I haven't seen the play, but I know maybe a year or two ago the play was doing the rounds on the West End and stuff like that, and they had Christian Slater playing the Jack Nicholson role. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah,
Split an image, ain't it?
Jack Nicholson Jr. But yeah, I've never seen the play. I'd love to see the play. If it ever did the round again, I'd love to go see it. So anybody who your ticket, just give me a call.
Well, the other reason why I bring that up is because not only is Christian Slater always been teased to be Jack Nicholson Jr. because they can talk very similarly and all that, but the fact of if this was written in the early 60s but it's set in the 70s, I wonder, because unfortunately I haven't seen the play. I don't know if they've updated it. I don't know if they could update it, etc., because many years has gone by. Now, of course, this is also credited with helping to change some of the viewpoints. I did see parts of Girl Interrupted. I didn't see the whole movie that I recall, but they did have a few characters that were slightly similar to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, this is written about. It's actually like someone's bad trip about their experience in treatment in an institution, and it's difficult to make it sort of anarchic. It's just it's more, anyway, psychological.
All right, but I mean, again, I'm just making the point. And of course, even though it has humor in it, and in some ways it is funny, it's not exactly a subject that you want to have a lot of comedy about. But I mean, the nice thing about the story is it does cover a lot of bases, and it does have a lot of character. That's fine, Susan.
Okay.
So, okay, now let's move on to. Did it also change any viewpoint from what you remember? Would you watch it again? Why did you like it? What didn't you like about it? Things like that. Who wants to go first, and I'll go last? Okay, Lee.
Yeah. Well, I just like everything about. I mean, for me, it's the performances. It draws you in, and you do feel for them. You feel for each character, even the minor characters. But as I said, if you take the cigarette scene, I want my cigarettes. That is so powerful. You've got to give a nod to the actor there. I can't remember the actor's name.
Was Sydney Lester? I think it was Sydney.
Yeah.
Lester.
Nice Ratchet, I want my cigarette, and then everything it just sort of spreads among the group, and it's just it's chaos. But then you get the other scene with the serenity of the scene where they hijack a fishing boat and they go on a day trip fishing. That is so wonderful. They all group together, and you can see they're all working together and they're getting along together. It's just from chaos to being so serene. It's just brilliant. But it's just the actors working so well together. And for me, I don't care what Louise Fletcher says. She doesn't like this, but she won an Oscar for that part. She can't. I don't care if she says I don't like the movie. That's a load of rubbish. She won an Oscar for that. She was a brilliant actress in that. That role was brilliant. She played it well. So I just don't understand what she was going on about there. Ness Ratchet is a brilliant character in this movie, and without that, I don't think the movie would have been anything with that character. To be honest, if you didn't have that character, and you didn't have that right actress, and she played it so well, the movie would have fallen flat on its face.
I just want to mention as a quick side note that from what I understand that the character was in Once Upon a Time as well, which was a ABC TV series that ended a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And now Netflix is actually planning to sort of do a prequel, I believe it is, with a different actress. So this character might be played by 3 different actresses, not counting the plays.
Well, right. I mean,
Okay.
they did nod to her.
Okay, well, but she was in the series, right? She was in Once Upon a Time.
Louise Fletcher wasn't, but the
No,
character
was.
the character was nodded to.
Okay.
It wasn't. She was never said.
All right then.
I mean, Nurse Ratched is such an iconic movie character now. I mean, Nurse Ratched. I mean, even the name. You know what I mean? It sends shivers down your spine. I mean, and she didn't really do anything that bad.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? All she was doing was doing her job.
Wow.
But it was this, you know, what do you call it? Them against that. You know what I mean? It was battle. Brick wall, fist. You know, and that's what it was with it. Ness Ratched, Jack Nicholson, boom. But it was that's what worked so well in this movie.
Well, yeah. Well, I believe the character that was Billy, I believe.
Billy, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of mean what she did toward the end of the movie.
Let's just.
I am.
Okay.
I am. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I got it. Okay, Lee, do you have anything else you want to mention on this?
I agree. I mean, I agree with the Billy scene. You know, I'm an old friend of your mother's. Blah 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 blah. But that's such a brilliant scene.
It's like the worst.
You know, it's so played so well, and you know, and you could see she was written as the villain of the movie. There was no other villains in that movie. Well, apart from the society of the asylum, the way things worked in an asylum. But Nurse Ratched was the head villain of that.
Yeah.
And she was only doing her job, what she was asked to do. So it just worked so well. And as I said, the characters, the actors worked so well together, written so well. It was a brilliant ensemble of actors in that. And it just made you feel for everyone. You know, even when Nurse Ratched was getting strung around the neck by Jack Nicholson, you thought, oh, is he going to do it? No, you can't do that. She's a nurse. She's only doing a job. But yeah, it does pull at your heartstrings on this one.
Well, I don't know about the book, but I know in the movie they did mention that some people were there of their own free will, and even Jack Nicholson said, "Oh my," you know, and then he starts using a lot of the, you know, common kind of bar talk and kind of, you know, other things. You know, why do you put up with her? Why do you, you know, live like this, et cetera, et cetera? If you weren't.
That's one thing I thought, hold on a minute, they volunteered to go there themselves. They could just go up and go out. Why don't you just do that?
But they just stay there and go through the whole thing.
They went through the terrible pressure of it all. I think, well, you don't need to be. Just get up, get your clothes, and go home. But anyway, that's my save for now.
All right. So, anyone else?
Um,
Okay, Ethan.
Yeah, as it's mentioned, you can't fault the characters on this. They just play everybody so well. And as it was mentioned, that last bit with Billy, Brad Dourif, who loads of movies, Chucky, but he plays the nicest kid in this. And it's so sad because he gets rid of his stutter until Nurse Ratched jumps in and says, "I know your mother," and he's got his stutter back again. It's awful. It's bloody awful. But it's acted so well. And even the whole cigarette bit, you know, you see the chaos and just all of them binding together, like when they go on the trip. And I mean, the best comedy moments for me are when they're on that trip and they pretend they're like all these doctors and they're working together to say, "Oh yeah, we're doctors. Yeah. Get on the boat, go off. And then you've got the whole party scene, which kills me every time when Scatman Crothers comes in. He's like, what's going on here? And he goes, oh, the supervisor, get back in there, get back in there. And they're all in the dark going, where is he? Why is he not saying anything? He's jerking off somewhere. And that bit just kills me every time. That bit is just comedy genius. Get out there and talk to her. Same thing you're doing, hiding.
Yeah. Well, that's the other slightly political item about the movie to quickly bring up as to, you know, you can see some of the characters are there because they were considered criminal, as was Jack Nicholson's character was considered somewhat criminal, which they mentioned very briefly. Other characters were there because they either wanted to be there or they thought they'd be a danger to themselves or others. And of course, according to legend or not legend, that this also changed some of the viewpoints of being in that situation, of that sort of clarification. And like I said, there were some characters that I actually did want to know more about, like Billy and a couple of the other characters. I did actually want to know, you know, a little bit more of their backstory, and I don't know if the book covers that or not. Anyway, Stephen. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing performances. My favourite scenes are where Jack Nicholson is being interviewed by the doctor. Is he faking it and all that? And the doctor that's interviewing him was an actual doctor from some asylum anyway. And what the part made me laugh, you know, he was being interviewed with somebody else in the office, and he just got anything else to say, and he just shows this card of a naked woman, and he says, "Oh, I wonder what she's doing now." That made me laugh. The part that the guy was having problems with his wife, I thought that was hilarious, the way he was shouting at Christopher Lloyd, you know, telling him to, you know, Christopher Lloyd was saying blah, 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 on and on and on and on. You know, that made me laugh. And the part where somebody puts a cigarette in his sock and his eyes just light, just bulge out like, you know, something's wrong here. And it's not a very nice thing to do to somebody. The parts I didn't like is where the boy killed himself, and what happened to Jack Nicholson in the end. And this film deserved 5 more Oscars. It was just so brilliant. Another favourite scene was when he's trying to lift the sink. You know, he can't do it, but the chief. Another, just one more final part, is where they waited for the electoral, you know, treatment, and he hands the chief some gum, and the chief says thank you, and he says, "You son of a bitch." I love that part. I thought that was brilliant.
Well, yeah. One thing quickly. That was another item of the 1970s movies. Taxi Driver. Even though I think it was a TV movie, Sybil. Another movie and TV movie, Carrie. There was a lot of movies in the 70s that started doing sort of a social commentary and had these offbeat characters and these people that were, you know, unbalanced or whatever, because unfortunately it's been 40 years. I don't have the exact, you know, newspaper articles. They didn't have the internet back then as to, you know, what people thought it was, what it was about, and then what the reaction was from people after they had seen it in the theaters, and then also the buzz too, because there was a lot of movies, especially in the 70s, that sort of had a semi-depressing or a semi-downer ending to it, where it is actually a cliche, because I can name off 40 movies where they sort of had Taxi Driver, other movies that they sort of had a very offbeat, possibly, unbalanced character and things like that. But again, still a wonderful movie. Did you want to say something, Susan?
Yeah. So my favorite part of this was the. All right. First of all, the other baddie in this movie, and in the story, is the doctors. There's the doctors and Nurse Ratched. The doctors were convinced they were convinced that McMurphy was sane, but was dangerous. And when we went into this, with 2019 thinking, here's all this, we have a history now of mental health protections and reforms and things like that, so that things are different for mentally ill people. Yeah, these other members of the ward of the asylum were able to leave, but they were mentally ill, and there wasn't mental health treatment outside of asylums. I mean, it was just primarily in asylums. I mean, there was talk therapy, but there wasn't as much psychiatry, and there wasn't as much medication, control as there is in an asylum. So some of these blokes were in there because of need. And the other thing is, like, when Candy was brought into the scene, and then McMurphy really brought her to hang out with him, but Billy was with her and it was like his first time with a woman, and it was his he was obviously, he was really kind to her and really gentle to her. And so when they went off, I was like, yay for him. And then I felt really bad when Nurse Ratched turns around, and Brad Dourif nailed it. He got the nuance there. It was amazing. He went from being empowered and, as Ethan had said, his stutter was gone, into the point where he was confronted, and he was basically emasculated by putting Nurse Ratched in the same place as his mother. And maybe some of this came from the fact that his mother had mistreated him. So, then he was emasculated. And I just, you don't think that sort of thing is going to completely ruin a man's life, but it sure did. And his suicide, as Stephen said, was horrible. And I felt really, I got teared over that. It was intense. And then the sheer joy of McMurphy about getting the everybody out and going for a boat ride. I mean, and that was amazing. I mean, there was, all the characters were triumphant, and so there was a lot of triumph. I mean, yes, Chief didn't need maybe the care, because he really wasn't a mute, and he really wasn't unable to speak. He'd just become unwilling to, and probably that his triumph at the end was one of the most heart-wrenching things. I mean, it was like, you felt like you were going to cry, and then all of a sudden you wanted to, like, hooray. Anyway, it's got so much emotion. This story really does. And you can see why I became a fan of Ken Kesey's writing.
Okay. Now, isn't it true? One second. Isn't it true that he also had tried different therapies and therapies that were not wildly recommended and things like that? I mean, obviously, that's the other issue too, and the other conflict is, quote unquote, is somebody wild or aberrant, or are they actually dangerous? Because I believe in the book there was actually a few people that were dangerous, but not. There was no character except for was it McMurphy choking Ratchet at the end. There was very few characters that were actually really violent, even though they do show a little bit of confrontation between them and the orderlies. So I think that's the other thing as well. And obviously, like you mentioned, we're talking about 2019 versus what the book says versus what the movie says. And things are going to change from, what is it, 40, 50 years later, something like that?
Yeah.
And also what's considered crazy and what isn't considered, wild or, dangerous, quote unquote, dangerous behavior. And that's also part of society too, as there's always been a decade and a societal meter as to what is dangerous or what is, wild or such and such. What were you going to say, Lee?
No, it was just going back to what Stephen said about the head doctor being a real doctor. While they were filming this, the doctor who played the head doctor diagnosed the actor who played, is it Hadley? They called him Hardon.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, with leukemia. And sadly, he died just a year after filming of this because of what he was diagnosed with. It's a bit strange having real doctors playing doctors and diagnosing the actors with illnesses. It's a bit, I don't know, the way they work this out for the filming is a bit strange. So I don't know if any of the other staff in the asylum were nurses or they were actors, but it's just, I found that when I read that, I thought, oh right, so he diagnosed the actor with leukemia. The actor died roughly about just a year after this film was completed with leukemia. It's a bit life is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other question as well, because obviously I don't remember, but I was a very small child back then, as to from 1972 to 1980, how many doctors or how many, people were on TV or on magazines. And now you go into the other extreme of, pop psychology or diagnosing somebody in, half an hour, where it's probably a good idea if you actually know the person. Is that the person that died of the leukemia?
Yeah.
William Redfield? Okay.
Yeah, that's
okay.
So,
so that's the other question that this brings up, not only the question of, the method of treatment and how they were treated, and it was kind of a prison, and some of them were lifers and some of them wanted to be lifers. And then that's the other question, is it because it was easier or they didn't have to deal with so much pressure and stress? Or was it, the fact too that as of 2019 as compared to 1963, that what is considered, mentally ill, and there's different things now and different reasons and different treatments as well, that you don't, electric shock therapy is not used as much as it was, back then in the past. So, that this is the other question of, how, you also wonder how much of it was accurate, and was it based on real people, and was it based on, like other great movies, they actually take snippets of characters from books and combine it into one, actor or one person, because they can't have, 12 people in the movie to represent, everybody in the book, and they shouldn't have to either.
But they didn't. There was pretty much the same cast in the book as in the movie.
Okay, that's fine.
I just was letting you know.
Okay. So does anyone else have any other thoughts or feelings or
there's a lot of feelings in it.
There's a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
Huge lot.
There's one part that he says, "God damn, boy, the size of you played some baseball or something."
Oh, the basketball.
Yeah, the basketball game, yeah.
I mean, that is a good scene where he's on the shoulders of the patient.
Yeah, and he goes off the other way.
There's Jack Nicholson on the top of the. Was that ad-libbed? I don't know.
Yeah.
It could have. It looked like it was ad-libbed.
Yeah, I mean that was another practice at that time, and even in the 70s, where they didn't seem to have people, circulate too much, go outside and things like that. It was very much a, you're in a cafeteria, you're in a room alone kind of, method of therapy, and that's probably not good either, especially since so many people have, claustrophobia, or they want to see the sunlight, or they want to see, nature. You can't get that, especially back then, from just sitting in a room or a cafeteria or something like that back then.
Yeah, it was funny because watching it, like at the beginning, the patient that, oddly enough, Jack Nicholson gets on his shoulders in the basketball, they've obviously restrained him down with all the belts and stuff. And it's funny because you're watching it, you can't do that now because it is a form of restraining. But it's so funny watching it back then, all the methods they did back then, the scary things they got away with to the patients, it's all changed now. But it was just that bit where you see with the belts on him, the straps, whatever, strapping him down. It's so funny. I just laughed because I thought, there's no way you wouldn't do that. It's illegal.
Well, there, like I said, and not to aggravate, but there was the book Sybil, and there was other books at the later on that had mentioned this as well. Plus, like I said, the methods have changed now too. They might use more medicine or more training of a different kind, rather than just the straight jacket, rubber room type of treatment.
But there's one thing I do not want this to happen, and I think you all agree with me. I hope they do not remake this. Mm-hmm. Do not remake this at all.
Yeah, this you should touch this movie. Just leave it as it is. Don't. Yeah. But going back to the treatment. To be honest, I don't think it was treatment back then. It's treatment these days for this, for the mentally ill. It's back then. It was just shove them in a room. We'll, as you say, bind them up, tie them up, keep them quiet. Just keep them doped up. That's all it was. It wasn't treatment back then. Just put them in there, put them in the building, forget about them. That's what it was, in my opinion. We have come a long, long way since those days.
They used to do it to little children and all.
Oh yeah. It was just, as you say, it's illegal.
I
think that's why, as Stephen said, one of the things, you should not touch this film. I think this film is better in that time frame. The story works better. Set in the 70s. You can't remake it. You can't modernize it. The story just wouldn't work. I think it's better just watching it. And it says set in 1975.
It also shows the people of today what it was like then.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's a history.
If you made it now, they'd have to take this out. They had to take that out. They wouldn't be allowed to show that. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
And why would you want to reshoot this? Because I mean, it won 30 awards, 35 awards, 35 awards, like 15 BAFTAs, 5 Academy Awards, like you were saying, Lee.
Yeah.
And it won 30 awards, and it was nominated for 13 more. I mean, there is no way that you will achieve that kind of brilliance.
Well, I'll tell you now. I'll tell you now. Alex has said this before. This movie really should have been a British movie, because British movies, they never have a happy ending. Characters always get the comeuppance. It's very nasty to characters, and this movie is. You know what I mean? It shows you that it's realism, gritty.
Yeah, it throws you into the deep end.
And as I say, if they remade it in 2019, 2020, they'd sugarcoat it, and they should not do that. Do not sugarcoat One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I think as the copyright, whoever owns the copyright to this will not have it remade.
Yeah, well, hopefully they don't, because
I think Michael Douglas has got something to do with it. He won't have it done.
Well, as far as I'm aware, unless I'm mistaken, I admit I didn't do a lot of research. I think the play is owned by a different person than the movie and then the book. Perhaps I'm wrong, but that's what I understood.
Leave it as a stage play. Leave it to whatever he wants to, but do not remake it.
Okay. Yeah. What were you going to say, Ethan?
Oh, no. Just pretty much, just don't touch it, There's no way. I think whoever would try to remake this would be shot down for it big time.
Well, let's hope so. But as we mentioned before, and like I said, I know I bring up other works, but there was Sybil, there was Girl Interrupted, there's other movies. Plus, here's an idea. How about a brand new book? How about a brand new movie that doesn't use everybody else's?
Okay. Ken Kesey is dead though, and he was the genius behind this. I mean, his other stuff has been turned into movies. There's Sometimes a Great Notion. There's Sailor Song, and there's a couple other things that were turned into some of his shorter stories with his English students at University of Oregon were turned into motion pictures. He's not. It's not that there's other writers out there. There's other writers, and let's hope that they write the next great American novel with this kind of wild integrity and wild intensity. I mean, that's what If you can find one of his stories that hasn't been motion picturalized, then that's a good idea. But I mean, Ken Kesey himself is a genius.
Okay, well, yes, but I myself am not saying about this being remade. Unfortunately, the problem is they've even admitted, and a lot of people on YouTube have admitted, that they probably don't want to do original stuff because they just find it too risky, which is sad because that's not the way it should be.
Wow, if you do not get this was a risk taker. This movie,
and Kesey himself was a risk taker. I mean, he checked himself into a mental institution and subjected himself to all of the treatment of the Tay, including LSD. Therefore, we have LSD on the street because he went out and brought it out with him.
I mean, if you do not take a risk like this movie, you will never have the results what this movie got. I mean, we take risks every week doing these casts. We are risk takers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what a hell of a risk what we take.
Yeah.
But in the movie business or TV, but you've got to take a risk. If you don't take a risk, then you're just following the rest of the sheep.
Yeah, bingo.
So so my point isn't that the author is great. That's not my issue.
That's my issue.
And I don't have an issue with the movie mostly, and that's fine. What we're saying is, unfortunately, also because of the political ramifications now, that this might be viewed as insensitive or whatever, where that's what movies and books and other works of art, they're not supposed to show everybody at the same level or in the same class or in the same way. There's people from all walks of life, and that's what art should show, not just one way.
Yeah.
So does anyone else? Oh, sorry, Lee, go ahead.
You're hosting.
Sorry, Lee, go ahead. Anyone else have any thoughts on this movie? I'm sorry that I didn't see the play or read the book, so I can't add. Right, you read the book. So did you see the play? You didn't see the play. Okay, so we can't comment on a whole as to the whole breadth of the work. But yeah, I'm very glad I saw this movie. Has a great cast, great subject matter, great conflict, great personalities, and that's what a movie should have. A little bit of a downbeat ending, but like I said, I don't know if that's in the book, but it is in the book. Okay, so all right, so it's parallel. So yeah, so it seems to be following the book, and I can't argue with that. And it's made quite a lasting effect and impression. And as I said, that comes from taking a risk.
So ask the people.
Okay, so myself.
No,
okay.
Start with everybody else.
I think I know how to. Yeah.
Do what you're told, Alan.
Yeah, very funny. So, what is the score? What is the very quick last 2-sentence review or 3-sentence review of this movie, and then I'll say last.
Right. Okay. I'll do it. If anything, I recommend the younger generation play. One of the movies you have to watch is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. All the younger generation, if you're into the modern superhero, forget the superhero movies. This is drama at its best, movie making at its best, acting at its best, and it will play with your emotions. It's 10. That's what it is. Just a simple 10. Well deserved, all the awards it got, and you've got to watch this movie. Oh yeah, and I don't like it when the youngsters say, "Oh yeah, but it's nearly over 40 years old." So what? So what? It's a movie to be watched. Any movie is to be watched, and this one is one hell of a movie to be watched. Yeah, it's a 10.
Well, I'll go next. Like Lee said, it's one big simple 10. Enough said. And it is on that list of movies you have to watch before you die, or just a movie you've got to watch in your life. At some point, just watch it. It's just 10 out of 10, superb. It is literally, as Lee said, gold. And it is one of the golden movies of our generation and time. It's just perfect. It's just a perfect representation of that time. The movie on a whole, the actors on a whole, the setting on a whole, 10 out of 10.
Amazing, awesome movie. Brilliant acting. There is a 10, even more than that. And I'd recommend the movie to anyone. Just watch it. Watch it. You'll be amazed by it.
And from this deadhead to this Kesey fan to the rest of the world. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is the starting point, but the voyage goes on. And so great. I loved I met all these fantastic actors with this movie too. I met all of them. I mean, I really had not seen any of the stuff that they did in the early 70s. So this was the beginning point. And excellent work, gentlemen, and Louise Fletcher and the other ladies. Fantastic. Here's Alex to finish.
Okay, I've seen this twice now. It is a great movie. Again, if you want to be a movie fan, you can't just watch one type of movie unless you admit you're a fan of that genre. And as I mentioned before, I consider myself a film buff. I've seen movies from the 20s onward to the present day. This is very gritty. This is very realistic mostly. It's a great cast. It's very, how can I say? It's very emotional. It's very intellectual in a way. You've got a wonderful cast of very famous people that have been employed for the last 50 years now, for the most part. And just because it was set 40 years ago, I've seen movies from the 50s and the 60s. The point is, it's written well, it's acted well. And the other nice thing is you don't have 10,000 computer graphics as well. So if you can't realize that there's different writers, different points of view, different stages of life, and different people from, all walks of life, then you're probably going to be having a very narrow view of the world. So I would suggest anybody out there, that you have to expand your focus. And I'm going to give this movie a 9. I only have a couple of problems with it. But as I said, it's a great cast. It's a great movie. I'm glad I've seen this. I've seen it twice already. And like I said, I think my only regret is I haven't read the book. But yeah, I mean, it's a great movie, and we're taking a risk reviewing this, and that's fine. And like I said, we've reviewed. Geeks Assembled has reviewed books. We reviewed video games. We reviewed movies. We reviewed TV shows, and we do it for many different decades. We don't just do one decade or the modern decade and things like that. So if you want, you can hear our point of view and see if you agree with it. And we're on Facebook. We have a group. We have a page. We're on Twitter. What else? What else are we on here?
We're on the whole world.
Oh, okay.
Tumblr.
And we're also on YouTube, and we're also on Tumblr. I'm sorry, Lee?
We're global.
We're global. So we're also looking for new members. And I know that somebody besides us is watching it, because I've even seen some Twitter feedback as well. So I'd like to thank all of the guests. I'd like to thank all of the volunteer guests and all of the very good comments. And as we've mentioned, we've covered pretty much most of the work except for the play version. And thanks a lot for your time, and see us on YouTube under Geeks Assembled. Bye.